All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the November 1st iteration of the Kubernetes SIG-Windows community meeting. As always, these meetings are recorded and uploaded to YouTube, so be sure to adhere to the CNCF Code of Conduct. I will start with a couple of announcements. First announcement is that there's a feature blog freeze tomorrow. Anybody who wants to author a feature blog post to go out with the 1.26 release should open at least a PR placeholder by tomorrow to get that done. I've opened one for host process containers going to stable, and I need to confirm with Aravind about the node service log viewer one. The actual content for the blog post doesn't need to be completed until much later in the release cycle. Next freeze is coming up is code freeze is coming up next week. So yep, we'll just need to make sure everything is merged before then. And then the following, I believe is that Wednesday? Yeah, that's Wednesday, UTC. And then the next one is there's a docs PR placeholder freeze for any docs updates related to feature enhancements, and that is the following day. All right, next is we'd like to give some space if there's any new contributors who want to introduce themselves here. Feel free to just say hi. You can either just interrupt or post in chat or raise your hand. I'll pause for a minute if anybody wants to.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi, yes.
Yes, this is Anthony Nanda. I'm new here. So I haven't contributed anything yet. I'm just looking around to see where I can help. But I'm from Microsoft. Mark, I missed your meeting, but I watched the recording. I'm from the Nairobi team.
Okay.
Yeah, so I hope to be joining most of these meetings and also to raise my hand to help in anything that I can. Currently, I'm leveling up on Go, so I'm new to Go, but it's quite interesting. So I joined in the other meeting for Triage. If you think there is anything I can look at, there is a bit of good for first timers. I will be happy to look at it.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. And yeah, welcome to the space. It's a pretty complicated space, so don't worry if you feel overwhelmed, but yeah, welcome. Yeah, we can, are you on the Kubernetes Slack as well? That would be a good place to kind of stand or to get information.
Oh yes, I also joined that.
Awesome. Yeah, we can sync up and see if there's anything for the test, like looking at some of the test issues on Slack. That would probably be a good place to do that.
Oh, sure.
Great.
Yeah, welcome.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now we can get into the agenda. There is one announcement. Michael, did you want to take this or should I about the recent OS updates for the HNS policy syncing?
Do you want to take it? Sorry, I didn't know if there's another Michael here.
Yeah, sure. I can take it. So I was hoping David would also be here, but a while ago there were some issues that came up on Windows nodes where if a new node was joined to the cluster, or for whatever reason, a node joined the cluster and need to sync all of the network policies. If there was a large number of services in the cluster, it could take up to an hour to sync all of those network policies, which means any workload that got scheduled to the node or any workload that was interacting with the node would be basically just undeterministic if the network routes were programmed in there. David Schott made some changes to kubeproxy to help increase. Okay, good. I was looking for that. Thank you, James. David Schott made some updates to the kubeproxy to help alleviate some of that by caching some things that were going on. But there also were some OS level fixes to help ease some of that too. So those fixes are now available in optional patches. I believe if you have the latest kubeproxy and the OS updates on Windows Server 2022, it brought it down from the testing a couple hours to about 1 minute, which is great. The OS fixes are available. I believe they're on by default if you install the optional updates on Windows Server 2022, the 10C patches. And if you're running it on Windows Server 2019, there's a couple extra steps to enable it for this patch release, which are documented here. But I know Julian from Relativity, who gave a talk about Windows containers, said that this went live like the day before his talk, and said this does seem to address most of the issues he was having with HNS, all of those policies syncing. So a pretty high confidence. He was also saying to recommending everybody switch to Windows Server 2022 in addition to like this fix. He just said there was a lot more improved stability. So if anybody is running Windows nodes with a lot of services in their cluster, highly recommend to investigate this. I think we'll do a post in Slack too to get more eyes on this. That's all I really had for the agenda today. I need to sync with our event about the status of the node service log viewer PR review. But does anybody have anything else they'd like to discuss?
I joined late. That's caused by network having a bunch of network policies. That slowness in the
Yeah.
group part. Wow. Okay.
There's more here. My understanding is that there was some, well, I think there was multiple bottlenecks in the kube proxy, just processing everything and getting all the network routes set up.
Mhm.
Some of them were identified as in kube proxy, and then a lot more were identified in the HNS itself. And so there was two sets of fixes to help address this.
Okay. And that just merged. Okay.
The kube proxy changes have been out for a while, and they've been out for at least like 2 patch releases for 123, 124, 125. The OS fixes just got released yesterday, and they are part of the optional updates. So you'll need to, I'll try and link to the KB too. You'll need to download and install the optional updates. They won't just show up with the Windows Update sync.
Cool. Okay. All right. But these have been out. This merged a while, and we just maybe never saw it. This was like a few months ago, maybe, that this merged. Okay.
Yeah, I know we've talked about this before in the SIG-Windows network meeting, but like this issue is, when was this? This is from March. When did?
Oh, there's a SIG-Windows network meeting. I didn't even know that.
No, I mean in the SIG-Windows meeting.
Okay, in this meeting. Okay, cool.
In this meeting, and the cherry picks went in June. So
June.
it's been, the kube proxy updates have been out for a while, but the kube proxy updates helped the issues a lot. It's still like, as you can see in the chart, 10 minutes to sync, at least like 10 minutes to sync your policies, or to sync all of your routes. This could still have pretty bad issues in your cluster.
2,000 cluster IPs, 5,000 endpoints. Okay. And 15 local endpoints pods. 15. This is great information, because we're trying to do this scale testing stuff for KPNG, and we're not sure when we'll see things fall down. And yeah, thanks. Cool.
Yeah, this is specifically if the Windows node crashes and comes back online, or you're adding a new node into the cluster.
Or
yeah, because what happens is like all of a sudden it needs to sync the routes for everything that's been going on in the cluster instead of doing it gradually as new workloads have been coming and going.
Yeah.
And it just takes a long time if it's got to do it all at once.
Cool.
Yeah, I think David would need to provide some of the specifics about the OS fixes if anybody's interested. I'm not sure about that. Do you have, I guess, since you're here, Jay, do you have any updates with KPNG and the direction that that's going? I think there's been some discussions in SIG Network about the direction of KPNG.
So I have an interesting update, which is that Ricardo and Amin and Mikhail are all at my house right now, and they're living here for a week. And so we've been going through all the code and hanging out in my living room. And so we split up the data model so that the global data model on the server side is separate from the local data model on the backend side. We did some stuff there, and then that's part of what we want to try to fulfill for SIG Network of generally making the code more understandable. So we're just going through every line of the code and commenting it and stuff like that. On the Windows side, Dimitri was hacking around on it and he found an issue. And I think we are now back in a situation where we had a development environment issue that I think I need to look at again. And one thing happened, which is that I broke SIG-Windows DevTools, but I fixed that. And then I think maybe hopefully today or sometime this week, I'll be able to spin things up and start being able to test, because we haven't tested the Windows implementation for a while, ever since you did that last set of patches on it. That's kind of all I've got. But overall, it seems like it's going forward. And the goal right now is to get it in. The new goal now is to say, let's try to take KPNG separate directories and break them up and move them all into tree, sort of, so that there's a staging repository in tree which represents what's in KPNG right now. So we're trying to stabilize and shore up the code as much as possible so it's understandable and something that has a chance in hell of making it through a SIG Network code review. So, we're going to do our best effort at that.
You said like under a staging directory?
Yeah, that's the overall idea, is that, like right now we have this gRPC interface and we want to make that gRPC interface explicit. So what we're doing is commenting all the gRPC calls that are made. And then once we have all those commented and we really understand them all properly, well enough to talk about them and in a code review context, then the idea is to actually take that KPNG library and make it a thing in staging, and then take the IP tables implementation and make that another thing in staging, and then take the Windows proxy implementation and make that another thing in staging, so that there's like 5 different things in staging that can all be sort of run together as a more modular kube proxy, right? That's kind of where things are headed. So yeah.
So then the old and the new kube proxy implementations are going to be maintained together for a while? Or like the current kube proxy and the KPNG, all in tree?
So this is a weird thing. So some folks did suggest that we would have the new kube proxy and the old kube proxy in tree. I feel like at some point that suggestion will go away and people will be like, it's easier to just move from one to another. But we're kind of pretending right now that the easiest thing to do is to have 2 kube proxies in tree at once. I totally don't think that, I don't know why we're doing that though. So we'll see. But since the hard part is figuring out how to get it all into staging and getting SIGArch to sign off on that, since that's the hard part, I'm not really too worried about whether we have 2 of them, because I'm assuming somebody is going to say that is a horrible idea and stop that at the last minute. But it's not a time sink for us, because either way we need to clean up the code and comment it. So like that's what I mean? It's like a Trojan horse to just keep getting the work done that's obvious work that we need to do no matter what.
Awesome. Thanks for the updates. Does anybody have any other questions about
I do have a
KPNG?
question. If we start working on KPNG, can we also move in with you?
Yeah. So I still have this outstanding proposal that I think from I mean, you're joking. So, but you bring up this thing of like, what if other people at SIG-Windows were interested in it? Well, I mean, we're still SIG-Windows, and I don't really see why we couldn't just have an out-of-tree kube proxy. So, that we had complete control over. So I put this on the mailing list that nobody seemed to have this strong. I know Luther has a strong opinion about it, but he didn't say anything on the mailing list. So
Like I also didn't say anything on the mailing list. I got busy.
I don't like why not? Why do we even need to be an in-tree kube proxy? I mean, if we can do a better job maintaining our own kube proxy out of tree, what I don't even see why we need an in-tree kube proxy. To be honest, this is my strong opinion here. But nobody
Well,
else.
yeah, I think that. Oh, go ahead,
there's
Claudio.
there's a tendency to split apart bits from the monolithic KK basically. For example, even the E2E testing framework itself, there was recently just a new release for it as well, which basically solidifies the separation of the E2E framework itself. So
Yep.
we shouldn't really rush to just merge in KK again.
I agree. But if you agree with that, you should respond to the thing I posted on the mailing list, because it would be hearsay for somebody to just go and start taking the kube proxy out of tree without some kind of community consensus. So if you have opinions on that, I know Mark, you had some concerns, and concerns are great too, you know what I mean? But I think we should talk about this.
Yeah, so I think that we want to move the win kernel proxy out of tree and maintain that, but we don't want to maintain the rest of the parts of kube proxy that interact with the API server and keeping that up to date with all of the enhancements that are kind of evolving in SIG network too. And my understanding is that with the in-tree kube proxy today, we can't do that. Those are coupled. But with KPNG, part of the design goal of that was to be able to do that, right? So
yeah, I mean, with KPNG now we could essentially, I mean, the SIG network API is pretty, I mean, the amount of stuff that's changing the API is, it's not like we're adding new fields every week, you know what I mean? I think we could do it. I think we could kind of do it now. I think, there are things like topology hints or whatever, I guess, that might change. You know what I mean? I think there's, there's stuff that could change, but I mean, it's really easy to just find what those changes are and put them into the KPNG data model. Like that's not super hard thing to do, I don't think.
Jay, if you move it, just I'm kind of curious. So in this model, when we deploy a Kubernetes cluster, we're not deploying kube proxy. So we just delete that daemon set effectively, or I don't know if you can just say don't deploy it. And then you're running KPNG. What changes have to be made? Like how do you actually deploy it using your this approach?
Well, you could deploy it the same way. So we could just make it so KPNG ran as a daemon set in a host process container, right? And we could just
and I got that working.
Yeah,
PR.
Oh yeah, you kind of have that. Yeah, you got that working. Is that a PR in?
There's a PR that's open in the KPNG repo. It needs work to merge because I hard coded a bunch of the cluster specific stuff like the CIDRs and things, the pod CIDR to pass in, and that was kind of specific to the values that CapZ uses. So I think it goes back to James did a paper, like a document that said this is probably the changes we need to make it so that we don't need to have cluster specific information in a PowerShell script that's used to start the kube proxy. So I punted on all of that, but if you know what all of the values are, like your source, your VIP and stuff, then you can run it in a daemon set as host process containers in a cluster.
I'm seeing. Yeah, this is great. Okay, yeah. So you already have that. So this thing is a daemon set, and you have the container that's talking to the API, and then you have the separate container that's talking to the Windows kernel. Yeah, that's great. And you could even make that one process if we wanted to.
Do I have two? I thought it was just one. Oh no, I did run it as two. I did.
Yeah, you run it as two. That's fine. I mean, you can run it as two. That's fine. You can run it as two, or you could do the in-memory thing as one. But that's good enough. I mean, that's cool. Yeah. So it's basically the same thing, Mike. It's not it's not functionally different from an end user's perspective. It's only just it's as a SIG, it's different. It's a strategic decision for us as a SIG to say we're going to have our own Windows kube proxy that we maintain completely all on our own, and we just push YOLO to it whenever we want. It's a strategic decision. It's not there's no technical change in the end. Nobody will see any difference or know of any difference, right?
But that also means that we have to have people to maintain it, release it, potentially like CVEs.
Yeah, exactly. Which means we also take on a few more responsibilities. But I mean, right now, I mean, the last Windows CVE was in the Windows user space proxy, and we did that, right? That was the last one that I remember, and Antonio showed it to us, and I think we just deleted the code. Like, he showed me the patch, and I took a patch and I deleted the code, and we submitted a PR and we merged it. So the process wouldn't be any different. I don't think, at least.
What about the KEP, Jay? Is if we do it this approach, does this like kind of freeze the KEP, or are we still going to complete the KEP? It sounds like this approach, you don't really need that anymore, almost.
We could decide. I mean, if we did that, I could sort of say, okay, well, the KEP is still there, and if folks want to continue working on the KEP, that's fine. But we've solved the problem we have from a Windows perspective, which is that we now have a lighter weight kube proxy that's more configurable, and we could focus on just maintaining that and let SIG Network finish the KEP. I mean, I of course would keep working on the KEP if SIG Network wanted us to, but I think at that we've probably added more value than writing a KEP, because we have a working implementation that we're maintaining, and we'll find bugs faster than anybody at that point, right? So I think for me, it might change where I focus. I don't know, but we could think about that.
Yeah, that was what I was curious.
I think the KEP still has to. I think the KEP still moves forward one way or other. It's just a matter of where right now we're kind of blocking adoption of it on moving forward with the KEP. But if nobody cares, then we kind of have a parallel stream there, right?
Yeah, that's what I was curious. I was like, where are we dedicating energy in regards to KPNG? Are we finishing KPNG? Or are we like trying to take the KEP to the end zone and get it approved, merged, and have the ominous dominus from SIG Network? It sounds like this is kind of like, we're gonna go build KPNG. We'll put the KEP on the back burner unless someone wants to take it to the end zone.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, the we gets weird here. I mean, people will want to take it to the end zone. I mean, there are people that want KPNG for edge scenarios and for other scenarios. Well,
why do they need to take the KEP to the end zone if you have this, like, say, if you have Linux, they have their own ePBF backend. Like, why do you need to finish the KEP still?
Just like us. For us, it's a lot easier if that KEP was merged, because we can say, look, we know this thing's going to be around forever. It's got sign off from SIG Network, and it's a lot easier for us to pull the trigger at that point, right? So any organization in the world has the same little existential crisis to decide about, right?
Mm-hmm. Cool. Thanks for it. Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. So yeah, it's not really a technology thing. It's more like a strategic thing. Where do we want to, how YOLO do we want to be? And so, but yeah, like there's a thread, like, folks. Yeah, definitely. If y'all have opinions, let me know. Positive or negative, I mean, either way, because either way is fine. You know what I mean? Like, but I think it could be a lot of fun if we just I don't think the overhead cost would be that high. Like, I think it would be easier for us to maintain. I think we can get some people involved who will do releases for us. We can create up a pretty good testing release workflow and stuff. And I think, yeah, I think the overhead could be surmountable. I don't think it would be that high. but it would be non-zero, of course, you know, there, it would be work, right? So, but maybe that's the question, right? Maybe the question is, hey, can you find 2 people to maintain this and that are committed to do that for the next 2 years or whatever? If so, yeah, maybe this is not a bad idea. If not, we're better off just staying in tree. I mean, maybe that's the decision. And then maybe we can come back and post that to the SIG, right? And we can say, hey, we got this new project. Does anybody want to maintain it? And, you know,
I need to drop for SIG Node. I did see that Fabian asked to review a docs PR for SIG-Windows tools. I'll try and take a look at that. James, you might be interested in that too. That's the user guide and the setup. Yeah, we should do that. And maybe try and link to that with the 1.26 website update. Like I think we were planning on doing that. But.
Oh, great. Thanks, Fabian. This is great. So we have 2 CNIs documented here.
All right, I'm going to stop the recording too.
Cool.
Bye, everybody.
Yeah, thanks. Real quick, Fabian.